This Mantis has a cool feature. You can use the strobe light thing like this, and sometimes you trigger the light. It's not working right now.
Where's it from?
Online. This one's from a place called WYRD RYDS.
WYRD RYDS?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through eyes covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep. I love everything. Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush.
46.7 on the Mantis King GT. Alright guys, welcome to the Mantis King GT review. This scooter has been around for many years, the Mantis. And the Mantis King GT simply refers to its highest, most expensive, most powerful model. There is a whole range of Mantises these days. I think most people want power. This is equipped with dual 1100 watt motors, dual hydraulic zoom brakes, and a whole lot of gold paint. And this gold, I haven't even cleaned it in a few days and it's that shiny. It is beautiful. It is a beautiful gold paint. And that really is what stands out about this scooter. The Mantis King GT is for a very specific individual. And it's for that individual that wants to buy the coolest looking scooter. Alright? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this rides the best. Personally, I think Vsett might ride a little better. But in the looks department, this scooter is downright sexy. You cannot deny that. With the gold accents, the crazy lighting at night, which I'll show you right now. Not to mention that WYRD RYDS does send this out pre-installed with PMTs for a small fee. Turns this into a little racing scooter. The grip is amazing on the Italian PMT tires. And WYRD RYDS has been around now for a couple years. They started selling PMT tires in the US before anybody else that I knew of last year. They're now one of the largest PMT tire importers to the US. Trust me, after you guys try PMTs, you will never go back. That's just a fact. It comes with a 24 amp hour Samsung battery, which compared pound for pound, apple for apple against a Vsett, say 25 amp hour scooter, that's the closest we're gonna get there, is about the same price. $2,200 or so for either. So really the decision between this and a Vsett, in my opinion, after riding both quite a bit, this is a Vsett 10 Plus I'm talking about now, is the looks department. This has what I would call better light setup. It has definitely increased visibility, a headlight that actually is usable to ride at night, whereas the 10 Plus you're gonna need to add an extra one anyways. A nice screen. These are the upgraded screens coming from Cabo now. It is a bit hard to see in the broad daylight, but at night it's freaking beautiful. I do think the screens will obviously keep getting better and better over time, but as of right now, this is definitely a very nice screen. So aesthetically, the scooter has it in the bag. As far as I'm concerned, the scooter is probably the most beautiful scooter that I'll review all year. And from a portability standpoint, it wins. It's pretty low weight. I think it's about 80 pounds. So when you factor that in, obviously there's a lot of market that people that could buy this. But here's the thing. I think this is for mostly lighter people. And why do I say that? Because even with me at 180 pounds, the shocks seem to be reaching their lower limits and even bottoming out a couple times. You can adjust these shocks. I'll show you right here. They have adjustable dampening, so you can turn this knob right here and it will adjust the rebound dampening. But what that does not adjust is the stiffness of the shock, which you would need to take almost the wheel off here to adjust this because of how the design is with the bottom of the shock here where you can adjust the stiffness. Yes, you can adjust the dampening from here, but you can't really adjust the stiffness without taking off the wheel. Obviously, if it's the most beautiful scooter ever, why wouldn't I just tell you to buy it right away? Well, some people obviously prefer ride quality over the looks. When you look at this, it's gorgeous. So what's its downfall? Well, as all things that are built a little bit lightweight, Whereas this, compared to its comparative scooters, it's got about 10 or 20 pounds less weight. And where does that weight come from? It comes from things like the thickness of swing arms and suspension bolts and hardware, the thickness of the frame. On this scooter, you can tell it's just a little bit less quality than the Vsett. And I'm not going to say it's so bad you shouldn't buy it. I just want you to be aware that when you buy it, that there is a few issues that I can show you this versus the Vsett right now, and you'll see what I mean. The first issue being this. This is just a looseness that's in the suspension, and what the looseness in the suspension is coming from is that there is just gaps in these spacers, and I don't even know the names of this hardware in these, to be honest with you. I just know that in a lot of C-type suspensions, if they're not the best design or the best sizing of these little bearings and things that hold the suspension, this is what will happen. You'll end up with this sort of loose, see if you can hear the noise there. There's a looseness to the suspension, right? And you can go through and tighten all these bolts up all you want, and it's not going to get any better. And the same thing in the front here. I can do it like this, right? I'll show you. Watch this area and listen. You sort of hear, when I hold the wheel down even, you can see there's just a looseness in there. It's probably very hard to see on camera. It's only like a millimeter or so gap. But the problem is with these, over time, that gap will wear down and get a little bigger, and it could cause other issues. And there's the Vsett 10 Plus. So let's take a quick look at that, and I'll explain what I'm talking about on there, just for comparison. Thank you, Jordan. My lovely assistant has pulled up. She was just out test riding it. So as you can see on the Vsett, it has about 15 or 20 pounds, but what it really has is a tighter, better made suspension, in my opinion. And when you lift it up, there is no looseness. Like almost no looseness compared to what we just saw on the Mantis. Same in the front. We can lift it up same exact way. Listen, look right in here. There's no looseness at all. It is basically completely tight, which means they've got all of these hardware pieces in here the correct size exactly. Hey! She's so fast. I'm not going to tell you that this looseness and all this is so bad that you shouldn't buy it, because I rode a 010X for a long time, about 4,000 or 5,000 miles. It had the same issue, and really the reality is you don't feel it while you have the weight on the scooter, like while you're riding. You only feel it if you get air, or if you get full extension almost, to the point where the scooter sort of releases the tension on the suspension. Then you'll feel a little jankiness to it when you're going over bumps. Like there's almost an extra clank to it that comes out of that little gaps. Now, I'm sure some people have probably gone in and fixed that and whatever, but most people do not have time for that. And anyways, it's just something you need to be aware of with this scooter for sure, is the suspension, all of these bolts, and making sure that these are not coming loose. Definitely high priority bolts to check around the suspension area when you do like a weekly maintenance check. Range wise, I've been getting, with 180 pounds, I've been getting easily 25 miles, no issues, and getting home with, 30%, 40%, 20%, around there. Now, I did have one issue with this scooter that I obviously have to tell you guys about. I don't ever withhold information. You need to be aware that there is some screws here under this light on both sides, and mine had come loose a little bit, and this frame part right here had a little bit of looseness when I would move the scooter a bit, and you could see it flexing, and so I had to take it apart. I asked WYRD RYDS. Luckily they knew what they were talking about and sent me a picture and everything, how to take this apart and tighten those screws, and it ended up only taking me about 15 minutes. Since then, the scooter has been very tight. Nothing's come undone. But definitely one thing on this scooter, you're going to want to get some Loctite and use that on any bolts that do end up coming loose so that they don't come up loose again. If you're really ambitious, you could Loctite all the bolts. Now, that's not a big deal breaker because on basically every scooter, it's the same way. You're going to want to check the bolts frequently, and if any come loose, make sure that they get Loctited down and don't come loose again unless you want them to come loose, like when you're changing a tire or something. One other complaint I have against this scooter versus the Vsett 10 Plus is the amount of stem flex. I don't know if there's an easy way to measure this, but what I'm talking about is the forward and backward motion when you pull and push on the handlebars. This, just compared to the Vsett, when you are doing this from either direction, doesn't really matter. When you are pulling and pushing on the handlebars, it just has a bit more flex than the Vsett 10 Plus, to the point where I definitely prefer the sturdiness of the Vsett. Same thing with the Mukata I had, since it's the same factory, but that was extremely sturdy, and I think I had to do more with the pentagonal design of the stem. The steering pole here on the Mantis is obviously just circular, which is not quite as strong, I believe, as a pentagonal one with more sides. What happens is, over time, that flex with that looseness in the suspension can develop a little bit more speed wobbles, I think, than the Vsett. Just riding the Vsett and riding this both equally hard over the same roads, same paths, I've noticed this is a bit more wobbly. Definitely in the corners a bit more wobbly. I don't know if that's the looseness in the joints or if it's just maybe the length or different dimensions or something. You know, there's a lot of variables that go into how a scooter rides, and so it's very hard to pinpoint exactly what's different. But for me personally, I do prefer riding the Vsett over this, but a lot of you don't care about that, right? A lot of you care about how cool a scooter looks. Without a doubt, Cabo has won that competition. They have a lot of great scooters, but their coolest one is definitely the GT. Both the Mantis King GT, the Wolf King GT Pro. These are very, very cool. They come out in gold styling. I know some other brands are going to be moving towards this gold styling. Even Mukata just released a 9 Plus. By the time this video comes out, if I have a picture, I'll try and flash that up of the Mukata 9 Plus. Beautiful gold. Gold's coming out to be a standard, I think, in a lot of brands, and I think it's very visible. It's definitely easier to see for cars than a black scooter. It also obviously looks great. Like, who doesn't want a great looking scooter? If you prefer all looks, the style, everything, the screen, then I think maybe you're willing to sacrifice a little bit of ride quality to have a little bit cooler looking scooter that will get you stares. Everybody you drive by, everybody you walk into Walmart, people will ask about it, right? You go to gas stations, people will ask about it. You literally stop at a stoplight and people will ask about it just because it's so beautiful, especially at night with the lights. It's hands down one of the most beautiful scooters. I can't say beautiful any more times in this review because I'm tired of it. A blast to ride this scooter. Me and Jordan have had a great time on it. I am a couple miles short of the 500 miles, so let's go ride it and finish up this review. Alright guys, one thing you definitely notice on this scooter right away is the gearing. The scooter has gears 1 through 5. Typically what I'm used to in the zero Vsett world is a speed limiting where the first gear will go about 20, second gear about 30, third gear full speed. What's different about this scooter is instead of a top speed limiting, it's a power limiting. In gear 5, it's the most power to the point where it rips your arms off, and it's a lot more pleasant to take off in gear 3 or 4. If you're racing somebody, you want to start in gear 5, but you're gonna burn out. It's almost inevitable, and you can't really control it. This is just different to me than what I'm used to. Not to say that it's good or bad, but on a Vsett, it has the same power in each gear. So gear 1 through 3, same power, essentially, but the top speed is what's limited only. It just takes a little getting used to, a little thinking about it, to realize that, okay, that means on this scooter, then when you're around people, you definitely need to push it down to about 3 or below to be able to keep it in control. I'm not going to say it's a good or a bad thing. There's multiple ways to program a scooter. This this just happens to be one of them. It is nice though to push it up to that 5 if you're already cruising, and definitely in the corners, the 5 helps you hit that apex like that, so you can hit that corner really quick. This also has a thumb throttle that they put on aftermarket from WYRD RYDS. I'm sure they can do it for you as well, but it makes it very snappy. Some people really prefer a snappy throttle, but other people prefer a sort of weaker throttle where you push it and it's a soft start. A setting I could probably even change on the scooter, but as it is right now, it's a very hard start. It's very fun. I'd call this level 10 on the fun factor for sure. Now, we were talking about the suspension earlier. It has adjustable dampening. It also has hydraulic oil in it, so it's not just springs. What that means is you do get a pretty smooth ride over bumps on the scooter. Combine that with the PMT tires, it's like riding on a cloud. It has great potential if they could just clean up on some of the things that I mentioned earlier. I think, you know, overall I'd give this closer to about a 7 out of 10, where the Vsett 10 Plus is more of an 8.5 out of 10. It's not like incredibly better, but it is definitely better. Talking about all this gear switching we have to do. This, and you'll see it go up and down there on the screen. It goes up to 5, right? Not the most ergonomic, but not the worst. There's a USB on that same thing, as well as a mode button. Next to that is your headlight button, as well as your blinker button for both sides. You can obviously turn both blinkers on at the same time, which is a little messed up, but whatever. The screen is on the left-hand side on mine, but that, when it comes to you with the stock handlebars, will be in the middle here, along with the light that's in the middle. And then what's left is just the brakes, the throttle, and the grips, which I believe these are also aftermarket grips they put on for me. Oh yeah, the scooter does cruise nice and little small pass with these tires. Now obviously, since this is smaller and lighter, it has a little bit better handling, I think, than the Vsett 10 Plus. The 10 Plus feels a little more boaty than the Mantis, but when you compare that to 11-inch scooters pretty much across the board, it still is a lot more nimble than all of those. It is nice to have that less weight if you are a smaller person and you have to lift this thing. If you're going to be lifting it regularly, then that is where this Mantis, the ultra portability of it, it might be one of the lightest weight that I know of dual motor high performance scooters. And from that standpoint, for somebody like Jordan, it's actually easier for her to lift this, and very hard, very hard for her to lift the Vsett 10 Plus, just because of that 10, 15, whatever pound weight difference. It makes the Vsett 10 Plus almost unmanageable. And so for a lot of you smaller people, that could be the case, and that's where the Mantis is obviously great. Thank you for watching the review on the sexiest scooter on the planet, the Cabo MANTIS King GT.